Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to talk about ethical approval for research and audit. The key principles of ethics in medical matters includes respect for people. Researchers must honor the independence, the dignity and the rights of individuals who are participating in research. This means getting informed consent from participants, ensuring they join voluntarily, and protecting their privacy and personal information. Beneficence means that you should aim to bring the most benefit and the least harm to the participants in particular and to society in general. They must promote participants' well-being, ensure their safety, and reduce risks associated with the research. By non-maleficence, we mean that the researcher must not harm the participants and should avoid or minimize potential risks. This involves carefully assessing and managing risks, ensuring participant safety, and providing necessary medical care and support. Justice means that the research should be fair and equal, considering how risks and benefits are shared among different groups. They should be selected and treated fairly without discrimination or exploitation and should have equal access to the benefits of the research. There are certain vulnerable populations such as women, children, and prisoners, the poor, and individuals with impaired decision-making abilities. And this group has to be protected. The research must be scientifically sound, methodologically strong, and valuable to society. It should address important questions, contribute to scientific knowledge, and potentially benefit individuals and research, as well as society. In transparency and accountability, the researcher should conduct their work with honesty and openness, disclosing any conflicts of interest, potential biases, and limitations of the study. Why is ethical approval required? The country at large, the scientific community in particular, and the institution where the research originates have responsibility to ensure all research is conducted in an ethical, legal, moral, and social responsibility of each stakeholder. Most of all, the researcher. If a researcher is involved in an unethical research and this comes to light, it will be the end of the career professionally for the researcher. By career, I mean as a clinician and as a researcher. So the ethical approval primarily is to ensure the protection of the rights, the safety and the well-being of the participants involved in the study. Ethical approval is essential to ensure that the rights and the welfare of the participants are safeguarded. This includes protecting participants from physical and psychological harm and making sure that they are participating voluntarily, and this voluntary participation is based on informed consent and the confidentiality of the personal information is safeguarded. The informed consent of the participants is an essential component, and this should be accurate. There should be clear information about the purpose, the procedure, and the risks and the benefits of the study, as well as the voluntary nature of participation. All the participants must understand that they can withdraw from the study anytime and for whatever reason that they feel is necessary. The consent should be taken in the language of the participant, and it should be given freely without coercion or undue influence. Giving some kind of a financial remuneration for the purpose of participation is also absolutely looked down upon as far as research studies are concerned. The ethical approval requires that the risk-benefit assessment has been performed and is balanced in the favor of the participant. So the Research Review Board will do a thorough evaluation of the study protocol to assess the potential risks and benefits. And the researcher must demonstrate that the potential benefit of the study outweighs any potential risk to the participant. And measures should be in place to minimize risks and maximize benefits wherever possible. An example of this is that if during the course of a study on preeclampsia, a patient develops an eclamptic fit and has to be hospitalized, then it is the responsibility of the researcher to ensure that the admission process and the treatment process is done safely and is done in a way where it has the least risk for the participant. So ethics is all about integrity. And integrity means that it adheres to the principles of honesty, fairness, transparency, and accountability. There are established guidelines, published guidelines by the World Health Organization, and standards of conduct to maintain the credibility and the validity of their findings. The researcher has the responsibility to not only ensure that the participants are protected and their interests are safeguarded, but the researcher also has the responsibility to ensure that the ethical approval has been taken and that the research complies with relevant laws, regulations, and ethical guidelines governing research involving human participants. This may include national or international regulations, institutional policies, and ethical guidelines established by professional organizations. As far as local studies are concerned, they may require only institutional acceptance and approval. But for international and collaborative studies, it is very important that the National Bioethics Committee has to be involved, and their consent and their participation is regulating the study process. So in which kind of study do we require ethical approval? So whether you're doing an audit or whether you're doing a research project, it is important that ethical approval is taken. And not only that, but ethical approval also oversees the dissemination of the research findings. So even at the level of publication, the ethics approval is mandated as well as approval given. So here are some examples of ethical issues that may face a researcher or a person doing an audit. Supposing a researcher considers doing an audit on C-sections or cesarean sections in the labor room, and they decide to do that by doing a retrospective record review of patients' medical records. However, it is very important to understand that even that can have an ethical problem. To overcome this problem, many institutions will take a signed agreement from their patients, where the patients understand and agree and accept that each and every part of the medical records, whether it is documentation by the doctors or it is the laboratory results or the radiological and ultrasound results or any other information that is put down in the medical records, is the property of the institution and not the property of the patient. And this information can be utilized by the institution for the purpose of audit or for the purpose of research. Now, if this safeguard has been put into place, then it is obvious that there is no problem as far as the ethical issue is concerned. However, even then, the approval has to be taken from the Institutional Ethics Review Board or from the National Institutional Review Board if necessary. In the same vein, sharing sensitive patient data with unauthorized individuals or entities can lead to breaches of confidentiality and potential harm to the privacy of patients. In today's world of social media and sharing of information, sometimes you can pass information on about a patient, and this information may include the patient's name or the address or even the medical record to another physician or to students. And this is a very unethical aspect, and all of us should be very conscious about this. And if we are passing any information just for the purpose of sharing, then this information should not be put on social media. However, if you are referring a patient from one institution to the other, then you can call up the institution where the patient is being referred and talk to the consultant over there or talk to the doctors over there and inform them about the patient's condition and then refer the patient, and at the same time also give the patient a signed copy of the referral note, and a copy of that signed copy of the referral note should also be included in the patient's medical record, and this copy should be on the hospital letterhead and not just on any piece of paper. If a letterhead is not available, then it should be stamped by some authority of that institution to make it a legible, legal, and important document for reference purpose. Other examples include pressuring healthcare professionals to participate in an audit against their will or threatening negative consequences for non-participation, implementing audit procedures that inadvertently cause emotional distress to healthcare providers or patients, such as criticism of individual performance or highlighting medical errors without appropriate context. So imagine a hospital where management decides to conduct an audit of healthcare practices. Dr. X is a senior consultant obstetrician gynecologist, and she has been informed that she must participate in the audit and submit detailed reports of her procedures. She feels uncomfortable with this request because she believes the audit methods are flawed and will misrepresent her work. Despite voicing these concerns, she is told by hospital administration that refusal to participate in the audit will lead to serious consequences, such as being passed over for promotion or receiving a negative performance review. Faced by this pressure and threat of negative outcomes, she reluctantly agrees to take part in the audit, feeling coerced and stressed. This situation highlights the issue of pressuring healthcare professionals to participate in activities against their will and threaten them with negative consequences if they refuse, which can undermine their autonomy and professional integrity. Another example of this is when audit results are published and the names of each individual consultant is put on the audit report so that everybody can see if there were any complications or if there was a higher cesarean section rate in some consultant practice, that this could be notified to the administration, and the administration might come very hard on each and every consultant. So these are all very serious issues, and these are unethical practices. Other examples include focusing the audit solely on certain healthcare providers or patient populations based on demographic characteristics, rather than conducting a comprehensive and unbiased evaluation. An example of this is that if an audit on cesarean section in a department is done Only on the junior doctors and the senior doctors are exempted. Falsifying audit findings or selectively reporting data to support a predetermined outcome, leading to misleading conclusions and compromised integrity of the audit. Healthcare providers conducting audits of their own practice or department without adequate oversight, potentially leading to biased or skewed results in favor of self-interest. So I'm the head of the department, and I may decide to do an audit on the C-section practices of my department. And I will, when I get the results, that I will show that my patients who come in the labor room, they have the lowest rate of cesarean section rate as compared to the other 5 consultants in my department. So this is obviously a skewed result or a biased result, and I'm favoring my own self in place of the others. This is highly unethical. Failing to disclose potential conflicts of interest or biases that could influence the audit process or findings, undermining the credibility and integrity of the audit. So an example of this is financial interest or financial favors that you may get to do the certain audit or to do a certain kind of research, or not only that, but it may also be having more favor for yourself, or maybe you have a shop where a certain instrument is being sold, or you have a company where a certain instrument is being manufactured, and you then use that that product in the research and try to show it in a good light. So addressing these ethical issues requires careful consideration of ethical principles and adherence to relevant guidelines and regulations, and ongoing vigilance to ensure that the rights and the welfare of participants are protected throughout the audit process. So over the past few decades, there has been an increase in the number of multi-author papers within scientific journals, and drug companies sponsored audits or research is slowly increasing, and these are considered to be highly unethical. Artificial intelligence technology is allowing publication of articles without any background research being done. So you have to be very careful that if you are offered authorship for any reason, for money, for favor, then you must make sure that you have some participation in that research process. Otherwise, it is not allowed. So ethical approval can be obtained through a formal review process, which is conducted by an institutional review board, an ethics committee, or a similar regulatory body responsible for overseeing research involving human participants. And it's important to understand that approval is required for any kind of study which is done on human participants, whether it is data in a medical record, whether it is biological sample of blood, urine, or anything, or an observation about them where information is collected from or about human participants will be used to answer a research aim or a question. Good clinical practice guidelines are an internationally recognized standard for clinical trials that include ethical and quality requirements, and that must be adhered to for any clinical trial that involves people. So some institutions will require that the researchers have GCP registration or certification before they submit their proposal for ethical review. So the process that has to be followed is, first of all, submission of a proposal according to ethical guidelines. Then the ethical review board will look at it, and if needed, will revise it, ask for revision and resubmission. And when final approval has been given, the ethical process does not stop here, because the researcher has a responsibility to make sure that there is ongoing monitoring of the process of research, and this is reported to the ethical review board, who will then continue to review it, the report, and will give a feedback, and the final publication also has to be reviewed and made sure that the results are okay before they can be published. The World Health Organization has also enumerated key principles of ethics in the medical situation, and this is available on the internet and can be downloaded in the form of a booklet. And these guidelines are according to the ethical standards and procedures for research with human beings and according to the Declaration of Helsinki. And the fundamental principles provide a framework for ethical conduct in medical research and guide researchers, ethic committees, regulatory bodies, and policymakers in ensuring that research is conducted ethically whenever it involves human participants. They highlight the importance of upholding ethical standards and protecting the rights and welfare of research participants while advancing scientific knowledge and improving public health. To the end of the video. Thank you for your patient listening. I hope you learned something in this video. Goodbye. Please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you can be notified of future videos. Share with colleagues and please send your comments. Do press the like button. Thank you.